It would have been reasonable to expect that Penn State, after an 0-5 start and not much to play for in regards to any kind of standing in the Big Ten, would have given up this season, but down by 11 points at halftime against Michigan State. Penn State certainly showed fight that they're out there to compete and win. Good to see from the Nittany Lions. We talked to Tim Aiden here from Black Shoe Diaries. Catch him and the rest of the staff there at SB Nation. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please share these videos out on social media. Folks out there don't know we're here talking college football every day. And, of course, subscribe. Hit that bell for the notifications. That way you know we're going live. Tim, let's dive right into it. Again, Penn State gets a third win to move on to 3-5, takes on Michigan State here, down by 11 at halftime. We'll point to the first half before we get to the good stuff in regards to why the Nittany Lions were down by 11.
Well, first half, a lot of it, I guess you could say, was just issues defensively. They weren't able to get as much pressure on the quarterback. Probably weren't, Brent probably wasn't dialing up, a lot of blitzes. And so their first-time starter QB, Peyton Thorne, was having a bit of a field day in that first half, threw a few nice touchdown strikes to his receivers. And, it was looking pretty shaky. Kind of had that, oh boy, back to the 2020 regularly scheduled 2020 Penn State team, that started 0-5. But to the team, to the coach staff's credit, first time all year they were able to overcome a double-digit halftime deficit. Made some real adjustments, and second half, which I guess we can get into shortly, they outscored Michigan State 29-3, and just looked like a different team. Got pressure. They were getting more pressure on Thorne, coaxing him into some mistakes. Although the first drive of the second half for Sparty looked kind of promising after Penn State had, went on to cut the deficit to 21-18 on their opening drive with a touchdown and 2-point conversion. Sparty was threatening. They had a first and goal from the 4-yard line, but Penn State defense, to their credit, they dug in. They kept them out of the end zone and forced them to kick a field goal, which in retrospect turned out to be pretty huge. As Penn State, the following drive, they marched down the field in about 5-6 plays and took the touchdown and go ahead extra point to go 25-24, and they really didn't look back. They force Sparty to go 3-and-out next possession, and then they get the ball back. A couple plays later, Sean Clifford hits Parker Washington on a deep ball touchdown. Made it an 8-point game, and kind of floodgates kind of opened. Defense got another big stop, and then on the ensuing punt return, Jahan Dotson took it 69 yards to the house. So, and that was essentially what broke Sparty's back, going up 39-24 on them, which ended up being the final score. At that point, Michigan State just started to spiral into making some dumb penalties and just looking a bit desperate and out of sync, which, from a young outfit like them and, their first year under Coach Mel-Tucker, which wouldn't be, unexpected. I do think they seem to have a pretty bright future under Mel-Tucker, that being said. But, Penn State definitely looked, they started to look like, the better team in the second half, which, they won by right around the amount they were supposed to. I believe the line on this game was about 14, 15 points. So they just about, I'm not a gambler, but those gamblers out there, they were probably sweating this one out a bit towards the end, because Michigan State was driving about a minute to go, down 15, and inside the red zone, a touchdown would have helped Sparty cover. But I know this isn't a gambling podcast, but gambling show, but I'm sure we can cover that another time.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Peyton Thorne replacing Rocky Lombardi, who was benched about halfway through the Ohio State game last week. Played pretty well against the Buckeyes. They didn't mount much of a comeback and only scoring 12 points in meaningless time, but he threw the ball consistently, then got a shot here against Penn State, threw for 325 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jalen Naylor, their top receiver, caught 6 for 100. And then, as you mentioned, Penn State really took over in the second half. And I see where on the defensive side, when Penn State took control in the second half, Simmons and Shelton combined for 3 sacks. And obviously the defense was tremendous from the second quarter on.
Yeah, they really did step up. In the second half, especially. They ended up finishing the game with 4 sacks. Like I said, Shane Simmons, it's 5th-year senior, probably his final game, even though he, as you probably know, the NCAA granted a blanket waiver for an extra year for all players because of COVID. But I would imagine he probably is going to move on with the rest of his post-college life, whatever that may entail. But what a way for him to go out. 7 tackles, 2 of them for loss, 1.5 sacks, and a pass breakup. That's got to be the best game of his career off the top of my head. And Jaquan Brisker, actually, another shout out to him. I know the safeties have been an issue all year long, but the senior, maybe in his final game in a Penn State uniform, had one of his best performances, 9 tackles, 1.5 for loss, had an interception actually on Sparty's opening drive, which he subsequently fumbled actually right back to Sparty, which, if that isn't the most 2020 thing of the year, I don't know what is. And then, but he also got some pressure a couple times on Peyton Thorne. So, all around solid day for him. And, Jonathan Sutherland also got 1/2 a sack. Antonio Shelton got 1.5. So, good job from the D line and also the safeties to get some pressure on Peyton Thorne and, especially in the second half and, really just rattle him a bit. I was hoping that Brent Pry would make some adjustments at halftime, about making sure to get pressure on Thorne, because it just seemed like first half, he had all the time in the world to make throws. And if you give any halfway decent quarterback time to 5-6 seconds to throw, they're probably going to find somebody wide open to hit. So, it was good they finally were able to figure out how to get him running for his life a little bit and maybe coax him into either throwing away or making some mistakes. So, like I said, till 2 halves. But it was refreshing to see that Penn State defense start to play up to their potential more. Better late than never, I guess you could say.
3 consecutive wins. So we will have to let the rest of the Big Ten games play out for the day, which is pretty much Wisconsin, Iowa. Add up these standings and then see who Penn State gets matched up with against next week, and who, unfortunately, we have to obviously see who meets the health and safety requirements of the COVID guidelines as well to see if Penn State can finish out at 4 consecutive wins and maybe move on to postseason play as well. You catch Tim Aiden and Black Shoe Diaries on SB Nation for Penn State athletics. Of course, basketball starting as well. All right, Tim, appreciate you stopping by.
Sure thing, Mark. Thanks for having me.